The smile that lit up stadiums, the dribbles that froze defenders, the magic that made you hold your breath, the flair, the unpredictability, the courage to attempt the impossible. Every step, every move, every trick, a reminder that football was never just a game, but a stage. For Neymar, football was never only about trophies or statistics. It was about joy, about expression, about turning 90 minutes into pure theater. He was not just a player, he was a performer, an artist, the eternal rhythm of Brazilian football personified. Every time he stepped on the pitch, it felt like samba in motion, a carnival in full blaze. He was Neymar, the boy from Mogi das Cruzes, the showman, the star who carried both the weight of a nation and the expectations of the world on his shoulders. But that was always the question. Did he truly live up to the expectations? Because Neymar's story was never just about magical dribbles. It was a path marked by nightlife, scandals, and constant ups and downs. And the spotlight didn't just reveal his talent, it also exposed his shadows. Today we focus together on the ups and downs of this little boy's career. On February 5th, 1992, in one of Brazil's narrow streets, Neymar da Silva was born. There was no money in the house, no luxury, but there was hope. His father was a former footballer. He had once tried to go professional, but his career was short-lived. Still, football ran in his veins, and now all his dreams rested on his son. Neymar's childhood was anything but ordinary. His playground was often the inside of the house, because there was no safe place to play outside. On nights when his father turned off the lights because they couldn't pay the electricity bill, little Neymar would still kick around a plastic ball, keeping his dreams alive in the dark. His mother, Nadine, saw his determination every day and believed more and more. "This boy is different," she would tell the neighbors. Futsal courts became his first stage. On those wooden floors at a very young age, he learned agility in tight spaces, the value of the first touch, and how to read the game at speed. In neighborhood matches, everyone gathered around him. He was skinny but fearless. If he fell, he stood up. If he lost the ball, he chased it back. Even then, he was never ordinary. In 2003, the family made a life-changing decision. They moved to Santos. To save their child's future, they left behind their jobs, their routines, their friends. The Santos Academy. Walking through that door wasn't just another step in sport for Neymar. It was a threshold that would change his life. Because that was the place where Pelé's legend had been born. At just 11 years old, when he first put on the Santos shirt, the coaches couldn't take their eyes off him. Inside that small frame lived extraordinary technique, raw speed, and a mind that seemed programmed to make decisions in a heartbeat. European clubs had already begun to whisper his name. At 14, he was taken to Real Madrid's academy. He dazzled on the fields of Valdebebas, but his father made the call. "My son will not leave for Europe too early. He will grow here, in Brazil." Maybe that decision was the first great turning point in Neymar's career, because the white jersey of Santos was no longer just a club symbol. It became the embodiment of an entire family's sacrifice. His father's guidance, his mother's quiet prayers, and his own stubborn will, they all came together. From the narrow streets of Mogi das Cruzes, that boy now shone under the lights of Santos. Brazil had found a new hero, and the world was only just beginning to know his name. In the summer of 2013, Neymar's story with Santos had reached its end. Europe's giants had been waiting at his door for years, but he chose Barcelona. At Camp Nou, more than 56,000 fans filled the stands to welcome him. Just 21 years old, stepping out of Pelé's shadow and into Messi's. His first season wasn't easy. Adjusting to the tempo of European football, finding his place alongside legends like Messi and Iniesta took time. But every time the ball touched his feet, the murmur inside Camp Nou shifted. The fans knew this kid wasn't just a transfer, he was the future. Over time, football's greatest trio was born. Messi, Suarez, Neymar, better known as MSN. With 131 goals, they broke the record for the most goals scored by a front three in a single season. That record still stands and looks untouchable for a long time to come. In 2015, they etched their names into history by winning La Liga, the Copa del Rey, and the Champions League, completing one of the most iconic trebles ever. In the final against Juventus in Berlin, Neymar stepped up in the dying minutes, sealing the trophy with a goal. That moment wasn't just a victory. It was Neymar announcing to the football world, "I'm here." But under the bright lights, the shadows grew darker. Neymar's transfer to Barcelona turned into a scandal known as Neymar Gate. The fee Barca paid was far beyond what had been declared, with secret contracts later uncovered. Spanish courts launched years of legal battles. Club presidents and Neymar's father were questioned. On the pitch, everything seemed like a fairy tale, but behind the scenes he was facing the dark side of football. Tax cases, media pressure, his name was everywhere. He was in the headlines not only for his goals, but also for conflicting reports and courtroom drama. Wearing the Barcelona shirt, he was winning trophies while fighting off the glare of controversy. And yet, those years were also Neymar at his brightest. Every match brought dazzling dribbles, decisive goals, the aura of a star even Messi could lean on. On the grass of Camp Nou, he carried the energy of youth and the first steps of maturity. Barcelona was the peak of Neymar's career, but it was also the place where the first cracks in his story began to show. Because the brighter the light, the darker the shadow it casts. In the summer of 2017, everything seemed fine at Barcelona. MSN was still the deadliest trio in Europe. Neymar was winning trophies, celebrated like a hero at Camp Nou. But behind the curtain, there was another truth: Messi's shadow. And the week Neymar decided to leave Barcelona was the same week of that legendary 6-1 win against PSG. In Paris, Barcelona had been humiliated, leaving with a 4-0 defeat that opened the door wide for PSG to reach the quarterfinals. In Spain, Barcelona started the second leg fast, but in the 62nd minute, Cavani's goal nearly sealed PSG's passage. Barcelona now needed 6 goals. It seemed impossible. When the clock hit 88 minute 1, Barcelona needed 3 more goals, and time was running out. But the Brazilian had other plans. First, in the 88th minute, he scored a stunning free kick to make it 3-2. Then, after Suarez won a penalty, Neymar stepped up. With a cold-blooded finish, he added another goal and carried his team on his shoulders. Now Barcelona needed just one more for the miracle, but there was no time left. Then came the 95th minute. Neymar dropped deep, took the ball, and sent in a perfectly weighted cross. Sergi Roberto struck, and the miracle was complete. In the final 10 minutes, Neymar had scored twice and delivered 1 assist, writing his name in gold letters in Barcelona's history. But the day after, the headlines told a different story. Marca, AS, and the Spanish press ran with "the miracle led by Messi." Around the world, the images were the same. Messi with arms wide open, running towards the fans, as if he had created the comeback alone. Neymar's performance was praised, but once again the spotlight was on Messi, and for him, this was the breaking point. Because he was tired of being seen as just Messi's assistant. The rumors grew. First, unease began within the club. His friendship with Messi and Suarez remained, but within the boardroom, cracks started to appear. Neymar wants to go. The fans refused to believe it. One day he was smiling at Messi in training. The next day the newspapers screamed, "Deal reached with PSG." And finally, it happened. Paris Saint-Germain detonated the biggest transfer bomb football had ever seen. 222 million euros. The highest fee ever paid for a footballer. In the corridors of Camp Nou, there was silence. In Paris, a frenzy of celebration. Barcelona had lost a superstar. PSG had signed a prince determined to build his own kingdom. For Neymar, this was more than just a transfer. It was an attempt to seize control of his destiny. No longer the second man beside Messi, but a king in Paris. When he stepped out at Parc des Princes, the crowd greeted him like a savior. In his very first season, he proved it by dominating Ligue 1. In his PSG debut against Toulouse, he produced 2 goals and 2 assists, becoming the first player in the club's history to register such numbers in his very first match. Against Dijon, his 4 goals and 2 assists performance remains one of the most striking individual displays in Ligue 1 history. By the end of his first season, Neymar had played 30 matches, scoring 28 goals and providing 16 assists, once again proving he had not failed to live up to expectations. But PSG hadn't paid €222 million just for domestic statistics or local trophies. From the day the club was founded, the Champions League had been the one elusive goal. In his debut season, Neymar faced the ultimate final boss of European football, Real Madrid, the reigning champions and kings of the competition. PSG lost both legs and were knocked out. 2019 was even more dramatic. PSG had beaten Manchester United 2-0 at Old Trafford, confidence soaring. United were in turmoil, Mourinho had been sacked, and interim manager Ole Gunnar Solskjaer had just stepped in. Yet in Paris, disaster struck. In the 94th minute, Marcus Rashford converted a penalty, giving United a 3-1 win and sending PSG crashing out. The disappointment was immense, and the pressure on Neymar only grew heavier. He had to deliver the Champions League. The summer of 2020 could have been the peak of Neymar's PSG career. In the unique pandemic-altered format, PSG reached the final and faced Bayern Munich. But Neymar and Mbappe missed crucial chances that left Parisian fans tearing their hair out. Kingsley Coman's goal sealed Bayern's triumph, and Neymar once again left the pitch in tears. The weight on his shoulders was becoming unbearable. The most expensive transfer in football history, €222 million, had failed to deliver the Champions League. That burden began to crush him, marking the second major turning point of his career, where he started to drift away from football itself. Alongside all this came the off-field controversies. Paris nightlife, extravagant birthday parties, carnivals. For some, it was just the life of a young man. For the media, it was a goldmine of headlines. When Neymar was seen lashing out at a supporter in a PSG shirt, the story shifted entirely. It was no longer just about his football, it was his character under fire. During his Paris years, the league titles came, the cups came, but none of them carried the same magic as the days when he shone alongside Messi. Because in Paris, he had wanted to be a king, and in the end, he was left alone. Neymar's career, with that departure from Barcelona, had reached both its greatest heights and an irreversible decline. Every Brazilian child dreams of wearing the yellow shirt one day. For Neymar, that dream became reality at just 18. 2014 was the year a great dream was cut short. In the quarterfinal against Colombia, Zuniga's reckless challenge left Neymar writhing on the ground. A fractured vertebra ended his tournament. Days later, Brazil suffered one of the darkest nights in their history, losing 7-1 to Germany in the semi-final, with Neymar forced to watch from the sidelines. 2 years later, at Rio 2016, he returned as captain. In the Maracana final, when his penalty found the back of the net, he collapsed to his knees in tears. The gold medal was hung around his neck, and for Brazil, a long-standing curse was finally broken. And then came Qatar 2022, perhaps Neymar's last great stage. His breathtaking goal against Croatia gave Brazil the lead in the quarterfinal, but defeat came on penalties. As Neymar stood crying in the middle of the pitch, those images were burned into a generation's memory. Once again, a dream left unfinished. Today, Neymar stands as the all-time leading goal scorer of the Brazilian national team, surpassing Pelé's record. In his country, he is seen as both a legend and a symbol of hope. But Neymar is known as much for the headlines he creates as for his football. In the 2019 French Cup final, after defeat to Rennes, he lashed out and punched a fan in the stands. Yet the controversies stretched far beyond the pitch. Neymar was a gamer, nights spent playing CS:GO, streaming to millions on Twitch. He was often seen at poker tables, competing in international tournaments, even becoming a sponsor. And then the darker headlines came. In 2019, accusations of rape shook the world. Neymar defended himself publicly. The case was dismissed for lack of evidence, and the charges withdrawn, but the stain remained. Once a name is shadowed, everything that follows is read with doubt. There was always another scandal. One year, while injured for months, dance videos surfaced on social media. Another year, headlines focused on the staggering costs of his extravagant parties in Paris. Neymar's life, filled with scandals, was as much a spectacle as his football. 2023, Neymar shocked the football world once again. His Paris chapter ended, and Saudi Arabia's riches awaited. Signing with Al Hilal brought him hundreds of millions of euros, but injuries and endless rehabilitation limited his time on the pitch. And then fate took him back to where it all began. Santos. His boyhood club, the pitch where he first dribbled past defenders. Years later, Brazil once again embraced its prodigal son. The world's most expensive footballer returned to the white shirt of his homeland. But looking back, Neymar's story cannot be measured by trophies or injuries alone. He will remain one of football's greatest stars and one of its biggest question marks. And we still cannot escape the question: if he had never left Barcelona, who would Neymar be today? A legend written in gold beside Messi? Or a hero who tried to forge his own path, only to be left in solitude? Perhaps both. Because Neymar was not just extraordinary talent, but a character forever wrestling with his own shadows. His name is etched in football history not only through goals, but through choices, scandals, and broken dreams. His story still feels like an unfinished sentence. For some, a wasted career. For others, the most dazzling player of his generation. But one thing is certain: Neymar's name will endure forever, among football's most debated and never forgotten stars.